Welcome, everybody. Thank you very much for being here with us. We are presenting our research, Teacher Autonomy as an Agent of Change in Teachers' Beliefs. We are Martha Hernandez and Lilia Borquez, and we are part of the academic area of linguistics at Universidad Autónoma del Estado de Hidalgo. Today, we will be sharing the research that we have been working on. We'll present the aim of the study first, followed by a brief mention of the theoretical framework, teachers' beliefs and teacher autonomy. By then we will talk about the methodology, which includes the research context, the participants in the study, and the instrument that was used to collect the data in the research. And finally, we will dedicate a little bit more time to the data analysis. We will present extracts from 3 participants which have been analyzed, and we will finish by sharing some of the implications we have found for language teacher education.
Okay, let me start by introducing the aim of the study. And just, I think it's important to mention that this particular study is part of a wider research that was conducted at the university some years ago. The purpose of that research was to collect data from different participants in the teaching and learning of English process. So we collected data from teachers, from students, and from administrative staff, their perceptions about how English was taught at the university in order to improve the quality of this process and get better results. And well, after all that data was collected, we just decided to focus on the beliefs that teachers have about teaching and about the learning of English at the institution. And well, these aspects were teaching, the teaching context, the use of materials and resources, the teaching methodology that is used at the institution, the assessment, and finally, the activities for professional development that they were invited to participate. A second aim was to explore how all these beliefs they have about all these processes have an impact on their autonomy as teachers. That is mainly on 2 areas, their professional action and their professional development.
Now, the theoretical framework that we use for this research has mainly 2 concepts. The first one talks about teachers' beliefs, and for this one, research has shown in the last years that the learning process is greatly impacted by the teaching practice. And we have also come to observe that this teaching practice is largely shaped by what teachers believe. And so we took the definition of Fives and Buells, which mentioned that beliefs are individually held conceptions that are in constant relationship to the context and teachers' experiences, especially because one of the aspects that we look at in this research is the context where teachers are working. And we also believe it is quite essential to make a difference between the explicit and implicit beliefs, which vary in the degree of awareness, whereas we obtain some of the explicit beliefs, which are totally visible to the consciousness. We got these ones through answers to closed questions, and then implicit beliefs, we saw them through answers, through the analysis of the answers to open-ended questions.
The other concept that supports our research is that of teacher autonomy. And for the purpose of the study, we adopted this definition, which is the teacher's capacity, which includes knowledge, skills, attitudes, and confidence to make informed decisions about 2 main aspects. What and how to teach, that is the professional action, what they do in their practice. And the second aspect is what and how to learn as teachers, that is their professional development, what they do to improve as professionals. Research suggests that in language teacher education, there has been an identified need for teacher education programs to provide teachers with opportunities to experience autonomy, first as learners of teaching and then as teachers of learning, because as teachers we play this dichotomy of roles. And also research suggests that language teachers are more likely to promote autonomy if their own education has allowed them to experience autonomy themselves. So I think these are two main arguments in favor of the promotion of autonomy. Something that also teachers need to be prepared for is to face constraints. No matter where we work in the future, there will always be institutional constraints that we cannot avoid, such as having a textbook to follow or a syllabus or some other administrative issues that in a way may limit our autonomy. But we need to prepare teachers to face these constraints. And instead of just being frustrated by them, we need to empower ourselves and look how we can transform these constraints into opportunities for change. Another thing that has to be considered in language teacher education is that beliefs need to be understood and they need to be analyzed whenever we look at pedagogical problems, so that we can see the implications and the characteristics of the context in a way that we find ways, or we found what aspects limit our autonomy in order to find strategies to promote it. About the methodology that we follow to conduct the study, well, our research context, we are a public university, which is located in central Mexico, and we have students in high school, undergraduate, and postgraduate programs. English is taught as a curricular subject throughout six semesters in high school and all undergraduate programs. About our participants, well, all teachers of English were invited to participate in this research, but only 72 teachers decided to answer this questionnaire. The educational background ranges. Some of them are undergraduate, some others they have a master's or PhD degrees. All the participants also have taken some language certifications, some of them TOEFL, some others Cambridge, examinations from Cambridge, and some others certifications created by our own institution. And most teachers have also been trained so that they can teach following the policies and the guidelines that are established in the institutional language program. About the research instrument, as I mentioned, it's a questionnaire with 54 questions. Some are closed, some others are open-ended questions. And the purpose of this questionnaire was to gather demographic and contextual data about teachers' beliefs, about the English teaching and learning process. And well, this questionnaire was disseminated through Google Forms.
Now, as Marta mentioned, this questionnaire was given to all the teachers that accepted to participate, and we obtained the answers for the closed questions, and from there we got some statistics, and then we got these answers for open-ended questions. When we tried to look at the information that we got from all these questionnaires, at the beginning we tried finding some kind of pattern through statistic test, but there was nothing really evident that we could, relate either in terms of experience or in terms of even professional development, etc. So we decided then to start looking at the actual qualitative data that we gathered through the open-ended questions. And something that it's important to point out is that teachers answer themselves the questionnaires. So what we have is messages written by them. So some of them would write things in capitals, implying emphasis. Some of them would include questions, etc. And when we started seeing all this information, we started seeing some kind of pattern where their actions and beliefs as teachers were somehow related to their actions and beliefs as learners as well. So for today, we have selected 3 participants, and we're going to show for every participant their actions as teachers and also as learners in their professional development, which is the other area of autonomy that we can develop. So the first person that we have, the first participant, is Estela. Estela is a Mexican English teacher working with preparatory school students. She initially majored in law, as many of the teachers that are working today in our system, but became an English teacher, and now she has been doing that for 16 years. When she was describing her teaching context, she mentioned that she was working with 7 different groups in the same institution. And something that was quite interesting about Estella's case is that almost half of her answers have some kind of negative connotation. For example, when she was asked to describe the context of her teaching, she of course mentioned that she was working with groups that are very, very large. So she had about 40 or 50 students. But then she mentioned, when she was talking about what was important for her in teaching, she says, what's important with the language is the students communicate. And then she says, in a group with 40 or 50 students, they only imitate and they do not reason. So something that is very interesting here is that Stella's answer equates not having the opportunity to practice the oral production with not being able to reason, which is something completely different. So a lot of her answers were very much on this line. Now, one of the sections that all the participants were asked about was about self and peer assessment, which we know that the literature has already shown that are very related to autonomy. And when she talks about self and peer assessment, she mentions that students do not have the culture of self-assessment and they stop being honest when they want to pass a module. Peer assessment is not useful as the students can use it. And she says, as a vengeance tool against those who didn't do the work. So this is interesting how she sees as a teacher the elements of autonomy not useful for her students. And this is something that we can also see in her role as a learner in her professional development. As Martha mentioned before, teachers here at the university are offered continuous courses, continuous education, so that they have this professional development. And one of the things they do in a special teaching course is that they create an individual professional development plan, which they are supposed to implement after they finish the course. When she's asked about this one, Estella says, well, I didn't understand at all. The same way we provided follow-up to our students, there should be a charitable soul to guide those of us who are a bit slow. So she decided not to implement any professional development plan because she felt she needed to be guided by somebody else. So we can see a lack of autonomy in this case. A second participant that we have is Celine. Celine is a teacher that at the time of the data collection was in his 30s. He had been teaching English at the same university as he graduated for about 10 years. And well, he talks about doing different things in his classes. And when he described the way he assessed his students, he mentioned that besides the institutional exam, he also had a learning portfolio, individual presentations in class, role plays, essays, etc., which to a certain extent seem to indicate that he places some of the responsibility more on the students rather than following the traditional assessment or evaluation methods, more teacher-centered. However, when he is asked again about self-assessment and peer assessment, well, he doesn't see them as tools that benefit the learning, but more as things that benefit just the grade of the students. And he says, you know, this peer assessment is used to punish their classmates by assigning a low grade when the team doesn't get along. And further in the questionnaire, he's also asked about his opinion about the Self-Access Center, which, you know, Morrison has already stated, it's very closely related to autonomy. And this is something very interesting. He categorically says, yes, of course, I do, you know, have my students going to practice their autonomy in the Self-Access Center, but they have to do what I tell them to do. The activities are compulsory and they are guided by the teacher. So of course, there's no autonomy there. And we can see this also in his professional development, in his role as a learner, When we see his trajectory, we see that he has kept studying a little bit, but there's no postgraduate studies. And all the courses that he takes are mainly done at the same institution. And they are related mainly to the actual language. So it's either translation or courses offered by publishing houses, because he says that all of these continuous professional development opportunities are basically to know more about the foreign language in a detailed way, not really the techniques on the teaching. So once again, he's being guided by what is offered at the institution, but there's no indication that he goes beyond that, looking for something on his own. Finally, Elena is a young teacher who has been working at the public university for less than 5 years. She holds an English teaching degree offered by the same institution, but at the time of the data collection, Elena was already studying a master's in a different university. When Elena shared the way she prepared her classes and she planned, she mentioned that she incorporated authentic material like videos and articles, and that she liked contextualizing the learning of the students in a way that those activities promoted interaction, communication, and authentic exposure to language. So what we can see here is that her teaching focuses a little bit more on the learner. So it's designing activities or bringing material that answer to the particular needs of the students, which is again placing a little bit more responsibility on the students. And this is something that it's also observed in her role as a learner. One of the things the questioner asked about was about the evaluation process. And the way they do this is by creating exams that are applied throughout the whole institution. And she likes this process because in here, she says that they work as a team. They all participate and contribute, but especially this is a process that requires the responsibility of each teacher. So he is becoming responsible. He's taking the responsibility of her role. And when she talks about her own classes, she says that she self-assesses herself a lot. She reflects on what goes right and what goes wrong so that she can improve. So we can see a continuously reflective teaching practice when there is a lot of self-assessment. So in conclusion, we can see that this study will, suggest that the beliefs impact not only on the choices that teachers make over their teaching practice, but also on the choices that they make as learners in their professional development. Something else that we found also while doing this analysis is that we found contextual factors such as the limited resources, of course, the very big groups, a textbook that does not really respond to the contextual needs of their students, etc., as hindering factors for autonomy, not only as learners, but also as teachers. And we are aware that because of the nature of the instrument, we need a more in-depth study to understand the rationale behind those choices that teachers are doing while developing their own autonomy.
Well, finally, some implications that all this research and findings have for language teacher education is that we need to train teachers, in-service teachers, and pre-service teachers to face constraints. And instead of just being disempowered by these constraints, we need to teach them how to face them and transform them. So even though probably they are not teaching in the ideal context, they know how to exercise their autonomy as teachers and as learners. And also provide teachers with opportunities to experience autonomy, first as learners, and then as teachers. So this will guide them to make better decisions, more effective and informed decisions about how and what to teach and what and how to learn, so that they continue developing as professionals. And hopefully they will promote this autonomy in their own students as well. So finally, these are some references that we use for the study, which we will be very happy to share if you're interested, and our contact information in case you want to talk to us. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you.